Your Honor, thank you very, very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The first thing we would like to ask is your judicial philosophy. What is it that you bring to the bench that you've had over these years? What is it that motivates you? What do you think about? How do you do what you do on the bench here in Texas?
Well, we get asked a lot about our judicial philosophy, and so it's a question I've contemplated. And I don't think that there's one single answer to a judicial philosophy. I think that there are different things that I look at when reviewing cases. First and foremost, I look at the law and what's before the court, and I think that the law is very important, and that the statutes and what's been provided to us is very important, as well as the Constitution. I mean, that forms the basis of all our legal answers. So I always start with the basis of where are we on the law. And then I look at the case and what's before us in the matter of that this is a real issue with real people, and trying to intertwine both of those issues is what my judicial philosophy, to make sure that these people have their day in court in compliance with whatever law we need to apply on that date. I was a litigator for 17 years before I took the bench, and so I'm a big proponent of the jury system and of our trial judges. I have a huge respect of all the 1,200 trial judges we have in the state of Texas. So as an appellate court, as you know, we review these cases, and I don't walk into them thinking, oh, the jury did something wrong or the judge did something wrong. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're only supposed to review those where we think that the jury or the judge abused their discretion or went beyond the realm of what was presented before it. So I always look at those cases going, I assume that the judge did his job and the jury did his job, and I think that's the way we should all do it. And that's what I looked at to look at the cases on a judicial philosophy. We're reviewing these cases based on a trial judge with experience and jury, and I look at that along with here's a law, here are these real people, and here's what we need to look at. And that's been my judicial philosophy all along, not only as a judge, but as an attorney representing people and businesses through the state of Texas.
I find it very, very interesting that in a country that is based upon freedom of speech, that is one of the foundations of this nation, that you running for office as a judge, your speech is limited, and you're a judge.
Yes.
Can you explain to our viewers, and we'll relate this to our readers, can you explain the limitations that you have as a judge, as opposed to somebody that's running for mayor or a dog catcher or whatever it may be?
Sure. The Code of Judicial Conduct has a specific rule that says that judges will not give any opinion as to any issues that may potentially arise before it. And so it's really important that when we call it, I'll explain it really easily, as chair of the Texas Center for the Judiciary, which provides all the judicial education for the state of Texas, one of the CLE programs that we put on is the College of New Judges, which we call Baby Judges School. And one of the first things that we have to teach these newly elected judges is that they're no longer in a political race, that once you put on the black robe, you are now a neutral party. We call it the walking manifestation of justice, is what we call it. We make fun of it, and it sounds very grandeur, but once you become a judge, you're always a judge, and so we need to keep that neutrality and that above board and that perception that we're not biased. So even though we have a constitutional right, freedom of press, once we take this oath, and even before we take this oath, even when we're running, we can't give any opinion on something that hasn't come before us, because then it will opaque that proceeding once it comes before us.
You spoke earlier when you were in the meet and greet to the group that came to listen to you today, and you were pointing out the differences between you and your political opponent.
Yes.
Your key on that was, and correct me if I'm wrong, your experience, not only as a practicing attorney, but your experience on the bench. Would you speak to that, the difference between you and your opponent?
I think that the three elements that I have to bring what I'm calling to the Texas Supreme Court, a balance to this court, is that one, I'm experienced. I'm an experienced jurist with over 800 opinions written, 7 years on the bench. I tell all those who want to decide whether to vote for me or not, I'm literally an open book. Because all you have to do is go open a book and find an opinion I've written on all sorts of issues, whether it's family law and parental terminations or probate or commercial litigation or personal injury or tax issues or water issues. I have, and in criminals, even though I'm not even writing for, we're not going for the Court of Criminal Appeals, but there's a whole slew of opinions that I have already written on to give that experience that is so necessary. I think that when you go to this position at the Texas Supreme Court, that experience is critical beyond anything, both as to advise the voters of who they're voting and for them to do this job. So I think experience is the number one thing that I bring to this bench, not only as a jurist, but as a lawyer, because I have 34 jury verdicts under my belt and 18 years as a litigator. My years as a lawyer, both as a legal aid lawyer, as a personal injury lawyer, both for defense and plaintiff, I bring a whole vast of knowledge as an experienced lawyer. And as an educator, I also bring, both as a lawyer and now as a jurist, I speak monthly on a whole slew of topics to teaching lawyers and judges how to be better lawyers and how to be better judges. Tomorrow I speak at the Advanced Appellate Law Seminar. Last week I spoke at the Advanced Criminal Law. Next week I'm going to speak at the San Antonio Personal Injury Bar on a whole array of different topics. So I not only have experience as a judge, as a lawyer, and as an educator. And that all leads to also experienced leadership on the Texas Supreme Court, which is the last thing. So important to have that as well, because the Texas Supreme Court does so much more than just decide cases, which is so critical with so many issues facing our Texas Supreme Court, but also because it is in charge of so much more in a leadership role at the Texas Supreme Court. And I have worked tirelessly as a leader on numerous statewide organizations, both as a lawyer at the State Bar of Texas, as a minority director for the State Bar of Texas, for MABA Texas, the lawyers, and of course, as I said earlier, as a judiciary for the Texas Center for the Judiciary, the Solutions Committee for the State Bar of Texas, and the Texas Access for Justice Commission.
You spoke about balance.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And you speak about that in your campaign, about balance. Keeping on the positive side of that question, as opposed to is the court out of balance? The question really is, what balance will you bring if you come to the court? How will you? Is it out of balance now? You use the term quite a bit. What will you bring to balance those?
I think that the court is out of balance. I don't think that I would use that word if I didn't believe that the court needed balance. I think that is not only my words, but there have been numerous articles written both here from the Baylor University and from the University of Texas Law School about the Texas Supreme Court, and 98% of its decisions are business orientated. That's not my number. That's a number I'm quoting you from one of these studies. But the balance that I bring from the court is different. The balance I bring from the court is a balance of what I think I bring that my opponent definitely doesn't bring, and that's the issues we talk. I've done it all. I've experienced it all. I've litigated all, from little small cases to multi-million-dollar cases, from slip and fall cases to massive tort litigation. I've done it not only in South Texas, I've done it throughout the state of Texas, in El Paso, in Austin, in Odessa, Midland. I've been in every court as a lawyer, and I've represented all walks of people. That is, from you to a multi-million-dollar corporation. That's what we need at the Texas Supreme Court. And I've done pro bono and legal aid, starting at the University of Houston at the legal aid clinic, and actually ran the legal aid clinic my third year there. So it's that whole semantics that I bring, that balance to the court. That's something that I believe that a jurist of the Texas Supreme Court has.
What are the issues that will be coming before the Supreme Court that you feel are important enough to voters that they should not only go to the polls, but when they go to the polls, vote for those judges for the Supreme Court? Because a lot of times people will get to the polls, but they won't go all the way through the ballot.
No.
So we all know that. What's important that the voters should know, not only once they get there, but to complete that ballot?
I tell people that all judges are critical in whatever they believe is important. Almost all of us at one point in our lives, unfortunately or fortunately, depending, will end up in the court. Whether it's a family law matter, whether it's you're getting divorced, whether it's a probate matter because you have a loss in your family, or it's because you've been involved in an auto accident, or because you've had work done on your home or your vehicle and they haven't done it right, or you're having a disagreement with your insurance company as to the coverage. I think that what we need to do to voters is to make them understand why judges are important, something that is personal to them. And that's why I tell them, you will end up at some point being in a court. And do you want the judge in front of you to be someone that's fair? And their answer will be yes. Well, then you need to go vote, because that's how we elect judges in the state of Texas, by voting. So you need to make a decision to go out there and find out what that judge is, or he or she, because they're male and female, and who you believe is better qualified for that position. It doesn't take that long. There are now in the age of internet, I tell people, and voter guides, and they just need to make themselves educated and just get those voters to make it personal to them of why they need to go. And the Texas Supreme Court is incredibly important. The issues before the Texas Supreme Court are education, which is important to everybody. If healthcare is important to you, healthcare is an issue that is before the Texas Supreme Court every day. If it is social issues are decided by the Texas Supreme Court every day, including same-sex marriages. If parental termination is important to you, then those are decisions that are decided every day by the Texas Supreme Court and are pending before our current Texas Supreme Court.
Throughout your career as an attorney, and then once you came to the bench, you have been given a number of awards, recognitions, but you've also been asked to fulfill positions and appointments. Is there one that stands out over the years that you felt perhaps it wasn't the most important one, but it was the most rewarding one from a personal basis?
Well, I have let me think. I have won a lot of awards through my years as a lawyer, being a super lawyer for 2 years running, which always makes me feel a little more. I think they're all wonderful. I don't want to make one less than the other because they all come from a place that is wonderful. But those that you receive from your colleagues, I think always, because they really do know the work you do. And the one I received for the National Hispanic Bar Association, the Latina Judge of the Year in 2006, was one that meant a lot to me because working as a minority director for the State Bar of Texas and president of the MABA of Texas, those issues that are important to minorities, both as lawyers and as people, are something that are close to my heart. And so that they recognize me on a national basis for the work that I have done meant quite a bit to me in 2007.
In many respects, you are the quintessential American story. First generation from your mother's side, is that correct?
Yeah, first
Okay.
generation American on my mother's side.
And you have gone not only through your childhood and your education, but then on through university, law school, and you've had a distinguished career. And here you are. That's America.
Yes, it is.
My question is, how does your family background, and I mean right down to the personal level, how does your family background and the values upon which and with which you were raised, how does that affect you? Because I know you can't leave that behind once you put on the robe.
No.
How does your family background and those values with which you were raised affect, guide, motivate, I'll let you use your word, once you put on that robe and sit on that bench and that individual or that corporation is looking to you for justice?
Well, I think that there are several different values. As you said, I am, I guess, American story. Don't come from me. Firstborn American, first in my family to have a college degree, first in my family to have a postgraduate degree, first in my family to be elected to a multi-county twice, because my county, I've been elected twice in a 20-county area. But I think there were two things that I lost my father at a very young age. I was only 20 when Daddy passed away. He was 54. And I think that the things that he taught us growing up, which is one, hard work. And I remember that when I have these cases in front of me, because these are hard-working individuals, whether they're a corporation or people that have issues in front of you. And he always led us to remember that these are people and to work hard. But I think more so, my mother, who has a strong faith, has also taught us that we need to have compassion and to help. And that's where my public service comes from, because I have a huge public service heart. She's always, to this date, always about giving in her faith and in her compassion, and to those who do not have as much as we have, and that we have been privileged. I don't forget any day when I wake up in the morning that I am privileged to have something that most Americans don't have, that I'm able to do things that most Americans can't have and most people can't have. So every day I remember that in my public service, which is why I became a judge, why I do the charitable organizations that I do, why I mentor kids, why I go talk to high school kids or elementary kids. And that stays with me when I'm on the bench. And as I told the group earlier today, Sonia Sotomayor talks about that she never forgets every time that she writes a judgment, signs her name to a judgment, that these are real people with real lives that she's affecting by signing that order, by signing that opinion, by signing that judgment. So every time I sign an opinion, I look at the front page and I look at them, and they're just not words on a paper. They're real people that I'm about to sign an order that's going to affect them. Because I may sign 12 opinions that are going to be handed down tomorrow, but to that person, in that case, that is their case, their most important case in their lives. And so I don't forget that when I put on the robe. And it doesn't have to be a person. It can be a corporation that is someone's business. And it doesn't have to be a criminal case. Or a civil case. It's in all cases. I don't forget that. That's what my mother teaches me every day. Don't forget.